So when we came out to Irricana, we were, Lauren was still printing uh, magazines, and but I had always, all my life, had this yen to publish a newspaper. So one day I wasn't too busy, and I drove to Bicycle, and I asked the leading car salesman there, Leo Schmalz, if he would advertise with me if I started up a newspaper. And Irakana had always felt sort of left out because most of the news was from Airdrie or Drumheller, but not this little area. They used to come in to sell advertising, but not to write about. He said, "Sure, I'll support you because we need our own newspaper." So after that, I went to one or two others, and I got the same good response. Yes, we'll support you. So I think that first day I sold $120 worth of advertising. And I came back to the office and I said, "We're going to start a newspaper." And Lauren and Paul said, "We're not going to have anything to do it. We're too busy. We can't be bothered with a weekly newspaper." And so I shamed them into them. I said, "Well, we had two presses, Lauren, the big press that Lauren was running, and then we had a little hand press." And I said, "Well, if you won't put out the newspaper, Susan and I'll do it on the hand press." so, so anyhow, they broke down. Before I got the paper put together, they had broken down, and I agreed to print it. And our first newspaper was printed on white paper, if you can imagine. Well, no newsprint. All we could put through our press was white, well, I guess you call it 10-pound bond, 20-pound bond. We had bond paper. And so we printed it on that. And, I think half the reason this first paper was so successful was the people were so astounded in this area seeing a white newspaper, no newsprint. It was this white newspaper, and everywhere I'd go, they'd say, "Oh, I saw that, I read that." And the first thing I know, I had them all interested because of that. And then the advertising began to come in, and eventually we got the bigger press. But there were two people that really helped me most, two country women who helped me most in getting going here in Irrican. As I said, when we came out, I knew what it was going to be like because I knew what it was like in Manitoba, where our district, if strangers came in, moved onto a farm or something, people would look at them sort of leery all the time. Well, what are they doing out here, especially if they came from the town or the city? So I knew this would happen, and it worried me because I expected that reaction. But Enid came forward and offered to write news for the district. She was the first one. And a lot of people, I'm sure, just read the paper because they wanted to hear what Enid wrote, because she knew everybody here. And I saw her just the other night, and she's 89 now and getting a little frail, but I've always known that I owed Enid a great deal. And the other one was Diane Hawkins. And I always say that she put the good housekeeping stamp of approval on us. Diane had grown up here. Her parents were here. Everybody knew them, and she was very well respected and liked. And I'll swear to this day that the fact that Diane decided to come and work for us, and when told them that we didn't have horns when she went back home, was what really helped us fit into this community. Because in the end, Diane was really the mainstay of the business. She was here several years. Her daughters worked here. Collins run the press. The Hawkins have been a great, great help to us in getting started here. But mostly it was Diane, as respected as she was, and knowing she belonged to Lions Club and all these women's Lions, whatever they called it, Lioness, I guess. She belonged to all these clubs, and so of course, if she thought it was all right to come and work for the Taylors, then everybody thought it was okay. And we've never had trouble getting employees since. And over the years, we've employed a member of probably every family in this area. When people start talking, well, wherever I go, people will say, "Oh, I used to work for you," and I can't even guess who they are, but they're one of the families that have lived here all their lives. And eventually, sometimes they just came in as collators. Sometimes it was paper boys, bag boys at the back. But a lot of them have worked in the front office, and we have a wonderful staff now, all country from around the country or the town, and they're so loyal and so faithful, and they know the work so well that we couldn't, wouldn't. In fact, the reason the business is still in Irricana is because of them. Because when we sold 70% of our business to Conrad, to Hollinger, they had another an office and press in Red Deer, and they were determined that we would go to Red Deer to run the papers that we sold them. And they wanted Susan to go to Red Deer. She refused to go to Red Deer, and she said, I will leave the company if you don't leave it in Irricana, where all our people are, because they worked with us so long and they know the business so well. I'm not going to start training a new staff. And we knew they wouldn't go to Red Deer. So we have kept the business here. It must be 5 or 6 years since we sold, and we're still keeping it here. One of the first things, another thing they wanted to do was to get rid of Dorothy, because she wasn't on a computer. She uses cards to keep track of every customer. And she had done that. She's been with us 20 years. Well, she had done that for so many years. And we said, well, no, we're not letting Dorothy go. So they compromised, and we have our business all on computer, but Dorothy has the backup. So if anything happens to computer, she has all the cards there for every customer we've ever had. So she's the heart of the business, really. But we did have to put up that fight once we were sold for them. And we did it because these people have been so loyal to us. And to this day, I've just written another book. And I couldn't have written it without Glenda, because I didn't know much about computers, anything about computers. And she's the one that keeps me writing. If I run into a trouble, if I can't, if there's, well, you know what the computer does. Every now and then it comes up and says you've done something illegal. Well, I don't know what the hell illegal is on a computer. So Glenda comes along and says, oh, well, this is what you did, or that's what you did. And she straightens me out. So they're still doing things for us. Like, we couldn't get along without them. And I couldn't. They're my family almost as much as my kids, because although Lorne first was the first one who was in this company and got me. Lorne was my support when we began, because for one thing, Lorne is a jack of all trades. He was able to build a place for me to live. He was able to start up the press. He could do all of those things, which he gets that from his father, Lorne, who was a mechanic. He's the head of the mechanical division in the mine. He comes by it honestly, but it just happens that he's the only one of the family was born with that ability. Fortunately, all my kids had different abilities. Susan is managerial. She can manage this company far better than I could. I did it when it was necessary. I did the tough part, but I couldn't handle it now the way Susan does, because she's got a way of handling the post office and all these things that I would just say, what the hell, I want it this way, and of course I'd get them all mad at me, and she's more, she's diplomatic. And Dennis has the qualities of a salesman. He can practically phone in he could phone in his ads all the time if he wanted. He's so well thought of in his area. And the other thing that Dennis is good at, he collects. He has a way of collecting all our bad debts. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. He never loses customers over it, but once he gets on somebody's trail, they usually pay up sooner or later. He's very good at that. So I've been blessed in that my children each had something different to add to this business. So although I started it, it's my family that really have made it go. I couldn't have done it alone, ever, and we all know that. And my in-laws have helped out a lot. Jan was the first one. Uh, Before she and Dennis were divorced, Jan helped, did yeoman service, started up a newspaper in Trochu. She worked in the office with me. And then Kathy came in and straightened out our books, because none of us had any bookkeeping skills. Our main bit of bookkeeping we did was that when in the first days when we were so hard up, if a customer came in and paid cash, the first thing we said was, well, now we can go over to the restaurant to have a meal. So you can see we didn't write anything down. We just meant it. But Kathy straightened that out. And then Fred came along, and Fred could sell just about anything to anybody, I think. And he has done a great deal for the company in his salesmanship, because he can bring in a flyer and fill it up, which is, get a new idea for a flyer, and he can sell it and make several $1,000s on it. He's just good at sales. That's his forte. So I've been blessed with my family and my in-laws. I haven't had so much success with my grandchildren. They don't seem very interested in the newspaper business so far.